Hello and welcome to the latest edition of What Does the Giraffe Say with me, Kathleen Retourne. We are a service that aims to reconnect people around the world with conservation efforts by holding live interviews. Today, I am very honoured to be joined by Tadzio Bervoets, and he is the director of the Dutch Caribbean Nature Alliance. So Tadzio, I'm just going to hand over to you. If you could just tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got involved with the organisation.
Sure. So thank you for the introduction. As you mentioned, my name is Tadzio. I am the director of DCNA, the Dutch Caribbean Nature Alliance. DCNA is a network organization that provides support to the nature conservation organizations on all 6 islands of the Dutch Caribbean. For my background, I come from St. Martin, so I'm originally from St. Martin, which is a Dutch Caribbean island in the northeastern Caribbean. I'm currently based on Bonaire, which is located in the southern Caribbean, but it's also a Dutch Caribbean island. And I have been the director of DCNA since October 2019. I have a background in ecology and environmental resource management. I did my undergrad in the US at the University of South Florida. I did my grad school in Amsterdam, University of Amsterdam VU. After I graduated, I bummed around for a while, was involved in a conservation project in Bermuda, and then subsequently with one in Africa on Zanzibar. I then left to become the marine park manager of St. Eustatius, which is another Dutch Caribbean island. And then I left from St. Eustatius, or Statia as we call it here, to go to St. Martin, where I became the director of the St. Martin Nature Foundation. And there we were able to establish the marine park for St. Martin, which we subsequently managed for about 10 years. And then last year, I took up my current position here as the director of DCNA in Bonaire.
Excellent. And what about the organisation itself? Can you tell us a little bit about its history and why there was a need for it to be established?
Sure. So DCNA was established around 15 years ago, specifically for 2 main reasons. The first reason being to manage a conservation trust fund. So DCNA manages a conservation trust fund that used to be paid into by the Dutch government, and which is currently still being paid into by the National Postcode Lottery, which is a national lottery based in the Netherlands. So they are our main funder. And that conservation trust fund, we distribute yearly to the parks in terms of providing financial support. Our second task is to provide capacity support to all 6 conservation management organizations in the Dutch Caribbean. Protected area management, so the management of marine parks or terrestrial parks in the Dutch Caribbean is mandated out to NGOs. So the government gives the mandate to protect areas to non-governmental organizations. And then they in turn manage the area on behalf of government, so to speak. Some of these organizations are quite large. So the organizations on Curacao, here on Bonaire, and in Aruba, you know, they are quite large organizations. But the organizations that manage protected areas in the Northern Caribbean, so the parks of Ceiba, St. Eustatius, and St. Martin are quite small. So that's why it's important for us, you know, to have developed this network that, you know, not only can we provide the support in terms of capacity support to all the conservation organizations in the Dutch Caribbean, but we can also, you know, exchange ideas, share best practices, commonly address some of the challenges we have, et cetera, et cetera. So DCNA really is a network organization, so to speak, for conservation management organizations in the wider Dutch Caribbean.
I mean, you kind of touched on it a bit there, but I know from going through your website and doing a bit of research into you guys that you stress very heavily on partnerships and collaborations. Do you feel like that was missing previously, and what's the importance with this?
Yeah, sure. So I mean, you know, the job of conservation management or the management of protected areas can be quite lonely, so to speak. So it's always easier, especially if you have islands that you know, are geographically close to each other. So in the Southern Caribbean, we have Aruba, Bonaire, and Curacao. And in the northern, you know, the Northern Caribbean, we have St. Martin, St. Vincent, Eustatius. Share basically the same ecosystem, some of the same common challenges that need to be addressed in terms of effective conservation management. So that's why, you know, the network was established to really support each other to achieve our conservation management goals. And secondly, you know, in isolation, it's so much more difficult to deal with international funders, to even deal with national governments or the government in the Netherlands. So that's why it's important for us to really collaborate and cooperate in not only realizing island-specific conservation goals, but also for the region. And that's why we also have a secretariat. So it's myself here in Bonaire in the office. We also have a research and communication liaison that's also here in Bonaire, an office administrator, a clerical staff member, and then we have a projects coordinator that is located in the Northern Caribbean, so on Saba. So that way, you know, we provide support and coordinate and implement and, you know, try to make the lives of the protected area management organizations on all 6 islands as easy as we possibly can.
And as you kind of mentioned, there's lots of different projects, lots of different wildlife that you're trying to conserve. How do you then balance this out and prioritize this and make sure that everything's getting equal attention?
Well, the priorities for our you know, for our projects or for our, you know, where we put effort into is more or less established by the park management organizations. So if you're a director or if you're in the management board of a park management organization in the Dutch Caribbean, you then become a board member of DCNA. And that way we're able to prioritize our actions based on the specific needs of the parks. And especially if it's a multi-island project, then we put, you know, increased effort into making sure that becomes a reality. But we depend very heavily on, you know, the needs and the priority list of the park management organizations. For example, if Saba, for example, comes to DCNA and says, you know, we want to have more focus on our shark conservation work, then we will then collaborate and cooperate with the Saba Conservation Foundation in putting together or supporting a shark conservation project, with the understanding that, you know, we can also bring in folks from St. Martin and Saba and even from the Southern Islands to participate, so that, you know, they can also build their capacity to be able to do their management actions.
Can you was mentioning like the shark project there? Can you talk us a little bit through some of the different projects that you have?
Ooh, it's quite the list. One of our largest projects that we did have was a shark conservation project. It was a regional project. And, you know, it was at one time considered one of the most successful shark conservation projects running globally. We thought that, you know, of course, also with the guidance from the parks, we, you know, identified the need to put more effort into shark conservation. And we did this through education and outreach, gathering the scientific data that we need to guide management actions, and then also with some significant political lobby. And then with the work that we've been doing, the Dutch Caribbean has been established as a shark sanctuary. There are quite some important rules in place limiting the catch of the species. And of course, you know, we continue to put focus on the scientific data gathering that we can then provide not only to the park management organizations, the marine parks in this case, but also to, you know, international organizations or regional organizations in terms of our conservation efforts for the species. So that's the shark work, which has a special, you know, spot in my heart because I was very closely involved in that. But we have various, you know, various projects ongoing. We have bird conservation projects. We have a bird conservation working group that has been established to put specific focus on protecting our critically important bird species. Many of the islands have endemic species that can be found only there. We've also been involved in quite a bit of youth education and involvement. I mean, one of our core tasks is to facilitate a youth involvement program or a youth participation program on all 6 islands, because we really think that it's critical to involve young people from a very early age, not only to act as ambassadors for nature conservation, but also giving them professional tools to be able to, you know, make a difference in their community in terms of conservation management. You know, well, we have quite a bit ongoing, actually. You know, we're also working on policy documents in this case, such as, you know, a policy document specific to how to effectively respond to pandemics, for example, since it's a new thing and something that unfortunately we'll be facing for quite some time to come. So we're giving tips and, you know, some ideas and procedures to the parks in terms of, you know, how to be effective in managing outbreaks, et cetera, et cetera. You know, I mean, yeah, the list goes on and on. So we you know, as long as there's a project that we are specifically asked to help coordinate and to help manage from the parks, then we're usually on top of it quite quickly. So yeah, we have quite a bit going on. It's never a dull moment, that's for sure.
Yeah, I'm sure. You were talking earlier about your education work that you do within the different islands. I know you have a program, your Junior Ranger program. Can you explain a little bit about this and its importance? And are you trying to ensure then that people are becoming more inspired and to make sure that your talent remains on the islands instead of going elsewhere?
Yeah, sure. So I mean, again, we are more of a network organization. So we really want to empower the parks themselves to be able to manage their Junior Ranger program. Some parks have a very long established program. For example, here on Bonaire, you know, the Junior Ranger program is really seen as an example of how to do a youth empowerment or a youth involvement program. You know, globally speaking, it's really one of the great examples of how a program like that can be run. But some of the other islands, for example, St. Martin, which is just now starting out with a Junior Ranger program, you want to be able to give them the tools they need to make it, to make it successful. We do this through various means, you know, of course, providing capacity support to the education officers that are hosted on the island, but also through, you know, usually when we're not involved in a global pandemic, we have meetings twice a year with all of the representatives from the park management organization and our external experts. And since last year, we've been having a component that focuses specifically on Junior Rangers and Junior Ranger exchanges, where we bring kids from all 6 islands together. They are usually in the terrestrial park. So we did it here on Bonaire. So kids from all 6 islands go to the national park, spend 2 days together, exchange ideas, et cetera, and then at the end of those 2 days, they give a presentation to not only their peers or people from the conservation organizations, but also to the decision makers on the island, which is also quite critical. And then, like you mentioned, we're also working now on a youth traineeship program focused on giving, you know, the tools to the kids to be able to contribute in terms of conservation, you know, whether it's to become a ranger, you know, we teach them how some basic terrestrial and marine biology, some basic ecology, so that they can become rangers, for example. But we're also trying to focus on many of the kids, because our islands are so small and they have to go to, you know, for furthering their education, they would have to go to the Netherlands, for example. And, you know, we're trying very hard to create the opportunities so that they can come back home and contribute to the, to the conservation management of their respective islands. So yeah, it's an ongoing process. I mean, there's quite a bit of work involved in coordinating that. Luckily, we have a projects coordinator who herself is a result of a Junior Ranger program, and now she's involved in the coordinating and planning of our Junior Ranger project. So yeah, we're excited with it. It's one of the big projects that we're currently working on. So yeah.
I love that. I always like it when you see someone coming up through the ranks and becoming passionate about what they're doing. What's the general attitude towards wildlife and conservation on these islands? Is it something that people are aware of, or is there still a lot of work that needs to be done?
I mean, it depends. It varies from island to island. I mean, you have an island like Bonaire or Saba or Statia, for example, that, you know, are smaller, have smaller populations, don't have the type of sort of mass tourism that islands such as St. Martin and Aruba have or had before the whole thing started with COVID. So it depends. I mean, all islands do need some work, outreach and making information available, and communication is also very central to conservation work, not only from our side, but from the side of the parks as well. So it varies from island to island. Of course, the islands with more industry, with more tourism, it's a little bit more difficult. But yeah, I mean, it's going. That, you know, we're lucky in the Dutch Caribbean in that we have 6 organizations that are very passionate and you know, about the work that they do, and also very good at the work that they do. So, you know, the Dutch Caribbean can consider it lucky, can consider itself lucky that, you know, these organizations are so active in doing conservation management, whether it's managing a protected area or supporting research or doing their communication and outreach. I mean, these guys really do excellent work, often with quite limited means.
I mean, we've touched on it throughout, and I think every conversation that you have with any human around the world now will have a reference to COVID at some point. How is it impacting the work that you are doing? Is there anything that people can do to help support you during these times?
Well, I mean, you know, it has made everything that we do so much more challenging. I mean, usually we have face-to-face meetings, or I can travel between the islands to actually physically sit down with the park managers and figure out what their needs are. Of course, quite a bit of the parks are suffering financially because they depend on user fees to be able to fund their programs. And, you know, since there are hardly any visitors, or haven't been many visitors over the past few months, they're kind of in a tough financial situation. But we're coordinating with, you know, appealing to governments, both the national government in the Netherlands and the island governments on the islands, to make sure that there's some type of structural solution to ensuring that nature is also covered when they talk about, you know, stimulus plans or financial packages that are being made available on the islands. Because, I mean, we're on small island developing states in the Caribbean, and nature conservation and sustainable development is quite critical in ensuring that we are resilient enough to bounce back, not only from issues caused by the pandemic, but also, you know, for example, we're in the middle of hurricane season. There are a few storms churning out there. So, you know, it's predicted to be a very, very busy season. We're not even in September yet. So we really are trying to make the case, especially with our governments, that it is critical that they have structural support, structural financial support given to organizations that are tasked with one of the most critical activities on the island. So yeah, it has been tough everywhere, but luckily, you know, we're managing to, you know, to give support and to try and put the focus where the focus should be, so that, you know, these organizations can continue with their work.
Yeah, I mean, I'm very fortunate to be based in Montserrat, which is also a Caribbean island, and it's incredibly beautiful, and your oceans and the islands themselves are absolutely stunning. So I think it's vital that the work doesn't stop there.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you know, nature conservation and maintaining the beauty of our natural areas, as well as the goods and services those natural areas provide, you know, it's critical for the survivability of these Caribbean nations. And that's something that we're really trying to highlight, not only within our, you know, quote unquote bubble that we've been functioning in for the past few months, but also regionally speaking. I mean, I think there has to be a lot more effort put into creating a Caribbean unity in terms of conservation and conservation management that is not necessarily dictated by political boundaries, et cetera, because, you know, I mean, it's a regional sea. I mean, we share many of the same ecosystems and migratory species, et cetera, so it wouldn't make sense to, you know, come together and really put effort into a collaborative way of doing nature conservation in the Caribbean region. So fingers crossed.
Okay, well, I've only got one more question left, and then we'll see if you've got any questions from the people watching back home, wherever that may be. If you do have a question, pop it onto the comments section, and then I'll take a look at those and put them towards him. If you're watching this and it's not live, you're watching it a little bit later on, then do still feel free to put a comment in and someone will be able to respond to your questions. So Tadzio, I just wanted to know what your favourite success story is since you've been working in conservation. Is there anything that has been a real highlight for you?
Yeah, I mean, my highlight has been the, well, aside from, the work that I did in St. Martin, establishing the marine park, that is, really a professional highlight personally for myself. There was no marine conservation area. And together with my colleagues, we really were able to, set aside an area for conservation purposes on St. Martin, which is, which is still being managed by the Nature Foundation. When it comes to DCNA, I think the work that we're currently doing in increasing our support and really putting the focus on the needs of the park management organizations is something that's very satisfying for me. I mean, coming from park management, I know how tough it can be to do these conservation actions with often very limited means. So I'm, it's very satisfying to know that, we can contribute in some way to the organizations that are doing great work. And I think thirdly, for a project specific success that I'm proud to have been a part of is the shark conservation work that we have been doing in the Dutch Caribbean. I mean, not only communicating the importance of sharks to decision makers and the general public and to try and, change the perception of sharks being these mindless killing machines, but also, having some success in terms of establishing large protected, species protected areas in terms of the Harare Marine Mammal Sanctuary for the Dutch Caribbean, getting species listed as protected in regional, regional treaties that are being regional treaties that are binding in the Caribbean. So we were able to add species that gives them regional protection. And also to be involved in scientific research and expeditions, and having planned and led a few myself, it really is great work to see some of the work that we have been doing in terms of scientific data collection has results in enhanced protection for the species. So, and we were also on Discovery Channel a few years ago, which, personally as a kid watching sharks, since I was like 4 years old, it really has a, I was proud to be a part of that, and hopefully we can continue some of that shark work moving forward. Corona willing.
The movie Jaws has got a lot to answer for with people's perception of sharks.
It does, and oddly enough, it's still one of my favorite movies. It's one of those movies that I can I don't even need to look at it, and I know what they're going to say next because I've many times. But yeah, I mean, and then just generally speaking, it's good to be a part of a group of people, both in terms of, my team here on Bonaire at the DCNA Secretariat, but also the working together with, conservation practitioners on all 6 islands of the Caribbean, very passionate people that really believe in conserving nature and see the importance of it and are willing to collaborate and cooperate despite, geographical distance. It's something awesome for me. It's something that I really appreciate.
And for those watching back home that aren't completely sure, can you tell us why the sharks actually need to be protected in the first place?
Well, sharks are some of the most, sharks in general, so the species in general, are some of the most threatened animals on the planet. There has been about a 90% reduction of the population of sharks in the past, I would say 10 to 20 years. Every year, about 100 million sharks are caught for the shark fin trade, as bycatch in fisheries, etc., etc. So it's really, 5 minutes before 12 before we lose the species completely. Sharks are also very critical to the health of ocean ecosystems. Once you have an apex level predator like a shark, they tend to keep the ocean ecosystem in balance. And once you remove that, the ecosystem gets out of balance. You have a drop in fisheries. You have, a bunch of knock-on effects that can be very negative, not only for the ecosystem or for nature's sake, but also in terms of the economy of the islands. So that's why it's important for us to really put conservation effort in saving some of the most threatened animals in the sea. And then, of course, you know, the image problem caused by the media, starting with Jaws, is not easy to try and overcome. I mean, from the 10 or so people that are killed each year from a shark attack, you know, we have to put double the amount of effort into telling people that, you know, dogs kill more people a year, or, you know, a mosquito is the most dangerous animal, etc., etc. So it takes quite a bit of effort. And, you know, we tell people, you know, I mean, swimming in an ocean without any sharks in it is like walking on the African savannah without any lions. I mean, it's not a type of, you know, there's no ecosystem functionality without apex level predators. So we're trying to really put a lot of effort, not only in the Dutch Caribbean, but also in the wider Caribbean area to enhance the protection of the species.
Sure. I've got one question from online, and they're asking, if someone wanted to do a job similar to what you're doing, what sort of steps would you advise them to go through?
Well, I was lucky enough that I received a scholarship to go and do my undergrad and then subsequently grad school. So I think education is quite a big part of it. Coming out of university, I was lucky enough to be able to, you know, sort of in the beginning of my career, volunteer a lot of my time. Unfortunately, you know, especially early career conservationists, there are not a lot of paying jobs out there. But I was able to, you know, build up my CV, you know, despite not really being a paid, you know, many paid positions, I was able to travel quite extensively. And yeah, just keep a lookout. There are good resources online that you can use to see if there are openings available on, you know, for conservation projects or conservation organizations globally. So yeah, I mean, for me, it started with, you know, sticking my head on the water at 5 years old and seeing a coral reef in the Caribbean and completely losing my mind. And then knowing what I wanted to do, and then going through my education and then volunteering, and then eventually it kind of sort of became my career. So it's not always easy, but I mean, you get to travel, you get to work with amazing creatures, with amazing people. So yeah, I mean, I managed to keep my eye on the ball quite, you know, throughout my professional development.
Yeah, I mean, conservation is one notoriously quite difficult to get into, but also not an industry that you go in for if you want to be making lots of money. But it is incredibly rewarding in other ways.
I mean, quite early on, I you know, I won't be driving many Ferraris in my lifetime, but yeah, I get to swim with sharks and protect areas and monitor coral reefs and work with awesome people. So I still consider myself very, very lucky.
Yeah, you're rich in other ways.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, excellent. Well, that's everything we've got for now. So I'll start to wrap things up. But remember, again, if you are watching this later, then do put questions towards us. We're always happy to help. And also, Tadzio, thank you so much for coming on. Is there anything you'd like to say to finish up?
No, I mean, if anyone needs more information, not only about DCNA, but also about the work being done in the Dutch Caribbean, don't hesitate to send us a message on Facebook via, you know, the page that you're seeing live now, or just by checking out the DCNA website, so dcnanature.org. The contact information is on the website, and you know, if you need anything or more information, especially for, you know, younger people that are looking to start a career or need some advice or advice on internships, we also do quite a bit of internship placements or give advice on how to contact the park management organizations on the islands in case they need any internships, etc., etc. So don't hesitate, and yeah, we're always here to ensure that you know, conservation happens in the Dutch Caribbean.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for coming on, and good luck with everything that you're doing. I know these are some trying times, but you're doing some incredible work.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
No problems. Okay, thank you everyone for watching. Have a good day and enjoy the rest of your day.